Wait. Oh, that's on.
It's
Wait.
on the screen.
Oh, there is dirt on my face. Hey guys. So today we are talking all about going away when you have a homestead, because I know that this is a question that comes up a lot from people. Is just how do you go away when you have a garden, when you have animals, when you're kind of really tied to the land? And the short answer to that is that it is more difficult for sure than when you don't have all of those things, but that it can be done. It just takes a little bit more planning ahead, I would say. So we are heading out of town in about a week and a half. I'm going up to a family cabin for a week. And I know it sounds kind of odd for me to be talking about going away from your homestead in the 1 year where we're all like quarantined and supposed to be staying home. But we happen to live somewhere. We're on Vancouver Island in British Columbia, and we have done a pretty good job here of flattening the curve.
Yeah.
In fact, Vancouver Island at the moment has 0 confirmed cases. So we're still not being encouraged to travel outside of our province, and you know, most of the borders are closed and that kind of thing. But we are being encouraged to travel locally, safely, of course, but locally, and support our local economy and all that. So we are headed up to family cabin in about a week and a half. And we're going to be gone for a week in total. And so, of course, that's going to be the beginning of July. We can't just up and leave. Our plants are going to need tending to. The weather's going to be hot, so they're going to need watering. We've got 10 animals altogether. We've got a couple cats that need to be fed while we're away. We have a couple rabbits as well that need to be fed and watered. And then we also have our flock of laying hens. So they need to be tended to. Luckily, they have food in a trough, so we can kind of fill them up before we go. And then same with their water, should be good for the time that we're
Their water's
away.
usually good for at least a week, yeah.
But somebody is going to need to come and collect the eggs. And can you speak to that again? What's the deal with the eggs if we left them in there? What happens with chickens?
So, yeah, if they're left in there, it's possible that nothing would happen, but what can happen if you leave the eggs in the nesting boxes is that the chickens will get tired of having them in there and they'll start to eat them. And having laying hens that eat their eggs basically makes them useless. So, yeah.
Well, so would they'd continue to eat the eggs after that? They kind of get a taste for them.
Yeah.
So we don't want that to happen, obviously. The first thing that we are doing, that we do every time we do go away, is that we get somebody to come and watch the animals, and, you know, keep an eye on the garden. But especially the animals, they need somebody to come and make sure that they are fed and watered every day. I have not found a way around this yet. So what we do is we actually have some neighbors that we have formed a really great relationship with, and I highly recommend this too, is to, you know, a lot of people nowadays, I find like they don't even know their neighbors. So get to know your neighbors and, you know, create a good relationship with them. One thing that we've done is that we make sure that if we ever have like any extra produce, or if I can up some jam or things like that, or we've got seedlings, we give them out to the neighbors around us, right? I mean, just because we have extra anyway, and we would do that anyway. But, you know, we always like to give as much as we can when we can, and then at least then when we ask maybe for a favor, like for them to come
Builds a little good karma.
watch our animals, they are much more inclined to do so, because we've kind of built that relationship ahead of time rather than just knocking on the door when we need something. So that is one thing. So we've got some neighbors that they always come and check on the animals for us. This time around we have our tenant as well, who's going to collect some of the eggs, and then my mom's going to pop in every once in a while. So what we've done, just so that it's not a huge burden on one particular person, is we're actually creating a schedule, and we've got a few different people that are checking in on the animals, and then keeping an eye on the garden. If you don't have anybody close by, or, you know, in your life that could tend to your homestead, then I would recommend going online. Actually, for us, I know that on Facebook there is a local hobby farming group, and I see people on there all the time looking for farm sitters. So that's kind of probably where I would start, or I would ask around if you have a local feed store in your area. I would ask there to see if they have any recommendations. But you can absolutely get a farm sitter. You can oftentimes get someone who's maybe a little bit younger, like a teenager, who can actually come stay at the place for you. Especially if you've got a bit of a larger scale, like you've got more animals, and or you're farther out where it's hard to just go back and forth all the time. You may actually want somebody staying at the place, so you could essentially hire a farm sitter to come stay. And again, it all depends. Everybody's situation is different. It depends on how large your homestead is, how many animals, what type of animals. I mean, if you have a dairy cow, that's, you're going to need somebody to be there milking that cow. And so you may have to hire that out. But if you don't have anybody in your immediate life, then if it were me, I would be checking online on Facebook, and I'd be looking for recommendations as well. I'd be asking people if they have used these farm sitters before, just to make sure that you're getting someone good that you can trust. And then same thing with asking your local feed store, because usually if you're going to ask for recommendations there, then hopefully you're going to get somebody good. So that's my suggestion. But if you have someone in your life that could come and watch your animals and your garden for you, then of course start there.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing that we are doing this year to kind of alleviate some of that pressure on our friends and family and neighbors is we are automating as much as possible. So in the past, we've had, our neighbors come and watch our animals, and they're totally cool with it. It's awesome. But, we've had them watch the place a few times, and we didn't want to kind of put a whole week worth of, oh, can you feed all the animals, and can you collect the eggs, and can you water the gardens? Oh, and the other garden that we just put in, yeah, can you water that one too?
Yeah.
And can you, it's too much. It's too much for one person. So we wanted to, kind of spread out the work as much as possible. So like I say, we're getting a few different people to check in on a schedule so that it doesn't feel too burdensome to any one person. But then we also automated a bunch. So the first thing that we did actually was we got an automatic chicken door. And actually, I'll let you talk a little bit about the chicken door.
The coop
how
door,
that works.
yeah. So the chicken coop door is basically just a pulley system with a timer on it, and it opens a sliding metal door that fits tight to the inside of the coop. So at 6:30 in the morning, the pulley lifts the door up. The chickens are able to roam in their run, and then we set ours for 9:40 at night. Seems to be a good time to know for sure that the chickens have all been back into the coop for at least 20 minutes or so for the evening. So that's good timing for us, and that shuts her down. And to date, we have not had an issue with a chicken left outside at night or anything like that. And it's great because we don't have to get up at the crack of dawn and open the chicken coop so that they can go out and get some daylight. It opens up at 6:30 in the morning, and out they go.
Yeah, it's been really good. I wasn't sure how it would work, especially with them going back in at night. I was like, well, what if they got locked out? But
they're remarkably consistent.
Yeah, we've never had an issue with that. I mean, knock on wood. Of course, that's going to be the one time while we're away. We won't be letting them free range, though. They're going to be staying in their run, but it's just the coop door that will open and close so that they are safe in their coop at night, but they can get out and have a little bit more space. They can
graze around a little bit and dust bathe and do all that stuff
during the day. Yeah. I'll share a link to the chicken door that we got below the video if you do want to check it out. The next thing that we did was we automated our watering. And I can't believe it's taken us this long to automate the watering. We kind of have dabbled
We've dabbled a little bit. So we did some last year. A
little bit.
For us to go away. But we used what we had laying around on the property that was kind of existing from when we bought the house. So it was a little bit, pieced together, and just a cheap little timer from Amazon to get the water to turn off and on. But we've, as Anna mentioned, we've added a couple of act like we like each other. We've added a couple of we've added actually 3 more garden beds. We've added a whole new garden on the side of our house. So there's now that needed to be set up. So we've used the old timer to set up some soaker hoses in there, and we have set up a 2-zone timer in our main garden, which is really cool. So what it does is it allows us to have 2 different water cycles running in here. So we have tomatoes and jalapenos and basil and stuff, some like warm weather, dry environment
And
liking
don't like a
plants
lot of water.
that are undercover, and they get to go on their own time cycle, which is nice. So they only get watered every couple of days for a shorter period of time, whereas the rest of the garden can get watered every day for a little bit longer. So, super helpful that we're able to have it set up like that. In addition, what we've done is we've basically set it up so it's like a permanent setup in here now, where I've actually buried some water lines under the ground so that we have a water outlet at the front of each garden row.
Hmm. Yeah, and then for the moment, we've just kind of snaked the. Are they drip lines? Are they?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
they're
all drip lines.
soaker
Oh,
hoses.
they're all soaker
Yeah.
hoses. Okay, so we've used some soaker hoses, and then for now, we have just kind of snaked them through our garden beds because we already have a whole bunch of stuff that is growing and maturing in the garden. So we had to be a little bit careful about that, but we snaked them through, and then we've just weighted them down with some heavy rocks for the moment, since
Hmm.
we happen to have a whole ton of them laying
Hundreds
around
of
our
them.
property. But you can also get some like large
Yeah,
staples, I guess.
you can get basically they're big wire staples, like horseshoe shaped staples that you press down into the ground to hold the hoses down.
So we'll probably do that eventually, probably
Hmm.
for next year, make it a little bit more permanent and not so many rocks all over the
Get our
garden. But
water in hopefully next year before we
before we
plant
plant.
everything, so that then we can run the mulch over top of it, and it'll be really efficient for watering.
Yeah. So the automation helps a ton. We'll still have the people that we have checking in on our animals, we'll still have them just double check the garden and make sure everything looks good, just in case there's an issue. But they won't have to, spend time watering all
No.
the plants, which can be quite time consuming.
Hmm.
The third thing that we do, and this is where I say it does take a lot of preparation ahead of time, or a lot more than it would if you could just pick up and go, because you have to really plan ahead and think about, like, okay, what's going to be coming on in the garden at this time, right? If you're going away in the summer, what's going to be ready for harvest? What's basically, what do you need to do to make sure that your garden is ready for you to go, and that your food doesn't go to waste. So what we have already started doing is just making sure that we are on top of harvesting, pulling anything out of the garden as it comes, and then making sure that we are getting it preserved right away. Because the worst thing is when you have a whole bunch of something that's just come out of the garden, you have it, sitting in your fridge ready to go fresh, and then you have to go away,
Hmm.
and you don't have time to preserve it now before you go, but it's not going to last until you get back, and maybe you can't take it with you. So we want to make sure that we are, thinking ahead about that, and that we are harvesting anything that is ready out of our garden, and in enough time that we have some time to preserve it or deal with it as well, so we don't lose it
Hmm.
while we're away for that week. So we've been doing that. Our peas and our broccoli have been ready. So we've just been pulling them out as they come, which we will continue to do all the way up till when we go. But we just don't want to be out here like
Hmm.
a few hours or the day before we're leaving, harvesting everything and trying to preserve it while we're also trying to get packed and ready to go.
Yeah.
So we're doing that, making sure that we're staying on top of that, making sure that we're just staying on top of the garden, the weeding, the pruning, the maintenance as much as possible, so that once again, we don't have to, the day before we're leaving, go, oh, we need to get all that done. And now we're scrambling and stressed out. Or it doesn't get done and we come back to a whole bunch more work. So it's just kind of thinking, okay, we got a week and a half. What needs to be done
Hmm.
now so that we're ready to go? And then finally, it's, anything else that we want to make sure is ready. For example, I would like to bake some bread before we go, so that we have some bread to bring with us. I mean, we could buy it at the store, but I would like to bake some. So I'm making sure that I'm feeding my sourdough regularly, so that I can get a few loaves made. I want to take some kombucha with us. And so that takes altogether, from 10 days to 2 weeks
Excuse me.
to get ready. So I had to make sure that I started a batch the other day, so that, a few days before we go, it's going to be ready to flavor and bottle up, so we can take it with us, and so that that's ready. And then once again, just making a note of anything that needs to be done right before you do go away. So for example, my sourdough starter, I'm going to make sure that it's fed, and then I put it in the fridge, so that it doesn't need any other feeding while we're away. If you have seedlings still going,
Mm.
right, making sure that those, either somebody's taking care of those, or that you can also automate. We've done that before,
Mhm.
where we've got the lights on a timer, and we had like some drip lines
Some drip lines,
in
yeah.
there watering them. So First of all, make sure that you have somebody checking up on the place. Even if you automate like everything, I would still recommend having somebody come and check up on the place once a day at least if you can, but certainly every couple days, especially if you have animals.
Hmm.
Because I mean, even if you think they're watered and fed and everything's automated, you just don't know. You could have a predator, or you could have an animal get sick or get into some kind of trouble.
Hmm.
And if there's not a human being around to help that animal, then that's going to be a bad situation. So, as much as you may automate, I would still recommend having somebody come and just check over the place, make sure everything's good while you're away. It's going to give you a lot of peace of mind as well. And also, just in case anything goes wrong with the house. I have heard of people going away, and that's the time where they have an electrical spark and they end up having a fire. Or my cousin just got back from the cabin where we're going and they came home to a flood. And so having having someone check in on the place is, I'd say, a must. So if you need to pay somebody or pay them in eggs or the harvest, right? Let them know that maybe they can grab anything that's ready to go out of the garden.
Hmm.
That's a great little incentive too, to say that, hey, can you check on the garden and the animals? You can take all the eggs, and if there's anything that is ready to harvest in the garden, then you can take that as well. Second thing, automate as much as possible, right?
Hmm.
That's going to make it a lot easier for whoever does come to watch your place.
It
And
might make it
it's
possible for you to leave without having to have
yeah, and for
somebody
like a
come and check
couple
on
days
it.
or something, right? Then you might not even need someone to
Hmm.
come and take care of everything. So automate as much as possible. It's going to make your life easier, not just to go away, but even just daily, right? You won't have to water, you won't have to let the chickens out early, yada yada. So automate, and then finally just think ahead, make sure that you have harvested anything that needs to be harvested, preserved whatever needs to be preserved, had anything that you need to have ready to go. Think about it ahead of time, because a lot of these things that we do with this lifestyle, they're time consuming. They're not necessarily always really difficult, but they can take time. Like kombucha, super easy. Most of it's hands off, but it's like waiting for 10 days for it to be ready.
Yeah.
So plan ahead. Don't expect to just be able to pick up and go. But if you want to go away, even at the height of summer, at the height of the growing season, it absolutely can be done.
Hmm.
We've done it before. Is there
We have.
anything else that we're missing? I guess
I don't
that's
think
that's
so.
all I
Yeah.
can think of. That's what we're doing, and that's what's worked for us in the past, and hopefully it'll work this time. But if you have any tips of your own, any advice for how you go away um,
Hmm.
and leave your homestead or your farm behind, then absolutely leave your any advice you have in the comments below. Otherwise, I hope that you found this helpful, and I hope that you are enjoying your time at home and that you have a beautiful, abundant garden growing this summer. But I also hope that if you are somewhere where you can get away for a little bit, I hope that you do, because we've all been stuck at home for a very long time. And we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen in the fall, if we get a second wave, if there's going to be a lockdown again. So stay safe, keep social distancing and all
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. But if you have the opportunity to get away, even for a week this summer, it can be done. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, if you like this video, make sure to hit like and subscribe below so you never miss an update from the house and homestead. We'll see you next time.
You stay classy.
Stop with the classiness.